Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective are pleased to welcome Michael Kopf. Michael is a metaphysical paranormal investigator, author, experiencer, truth seeker, dreamer, Reiki master, ordained reverend, way shower, podcast host, and many other things. Michael has been on a metaphysical journey since childhood. He has had many experiences and learned many lessons on this journey called life. Michael hosts The Energy That Surrounds Us and Riding Through the Unknown. He also co-hosts Paranormal Verses with Kelly Ridley and E. Smith. He can be seen on other shows as a guest and/or panelist. Michael has an interest in the unexplained and the esoteric. Occasionally, he goes on paranormal investigations. Michael is currently embracing his author path as he writes new books. He recently published his 5th book and is working on 2 more. Michael writes his books uniquely, providing information from his own personal insights and thoughts, leaving the conclusions for readers to decide. Topics he chooses interest him and are closest to his heart, as these topics resonate with others. Michael enjoys sharing his knowledge and insights. Gina Virginia Casella and the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective are pleased to welcome Michael Kopf.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and I am excited, and I can't wait to dive into this topic. I'm sure you all will have a lot of fun with it, and thank you to Gina and Julia and Jason for all their hard work. And if Gina pulls up my presentation, we can get it started. Okay, let's see. Now that I have it, here we go. The power and mythos of the hero's journey. So you may be asking, what is the hero's journey and why is it important to know the power and the mythos of it? Well, let us dive into that and let's see. What is a hero's journey? A hero's journey is a question many of us don't really even think about or really give a lot of thought to. And thankfully, Joseph Campbell brought it to modern awareness. And he brought it in such a way that we realize it's in books, it's in movies, but it's also in our everyday life. And that is an aspect that I think is very powerful and very creative with us, and is something that I think a lot of us need to take a moment and kind of sit with and think about. And according to Joseph Campbell, the hero's journey is a simple yet powerful creative concept found not just in myths and fairy tales, but also novels, films, interactive video games, or anywhere stories are told. Now, our lives, in my perspective and my awareness, are all our stories, our history. And so this is a journey undertaken by individuals or groups of people to rise from where they are in their current life. But this mythological motif is more than just a plot device. There's an argument to be made that the hero's journey is germane to the human experience. Now, that may sound like a huge undertaking or a huge ordeal to go into, but as I use these two photos that I pulled from AI to show a young man and a young woman doing the hero's journey, that is just one aspect. These journeys can be undertaken at any time in our lives. And it's simply a roadmap that helps us to helps us to guide ourselves through our life. And our hero's journey is only for the young. Well, actually, no. We are living in a time where we are awakening to new possibilities and new awarenesses in life. And so here is visual representations from AI where you see our elderly community and young adults getting ready as a group to undertake a hero's journey. And that is something I feel is important to point out, is that the hero's journey can be undertaken at any age, no matter who you are. And you can take it on your own, or you can take it as a group. Now, the hero's journey formula, as Joseph Campbell states, is broken down into 3 parts. The standard path of the mythological adventure is represented by the rites of passage: separation, initiation, return. Now, these 3 components may sound kind of strange to think about, but let's take a moment to share what we see when we think about these topics. What is separation? What is initiation? What does the return mean? And so I'm going to start with separation and share my insights and share this so you understand where I'm coming from when I talk about my hero's journeys moving forward. So let us take a moment and look at the first piece of the formula: separation. Now, separation lets us take a moment and realize that this can mean being removed from something, or it could mean not in agreement with the group. Separation can also mean a split between what you believe in and what you feel you believe in. That is a very important distinction, because you have your core beliefs and your beliefs. And so separation can be within yourself, or it can be an outside influence. I've had many experiences in my life where my beliefs have been challenged, and who I was challenged as well. Now, the images I chose here may seem strange, but I had AI generate them for a purpose, and the image on the left is someone in a traffic jam. Now, this is a form of separation because you are on a hero's journey to get to your destination, to get what you need, but all these other vehicles are blocking your way. That is the separation. It's you're not able to get to your destination until all these other vehicles move and get where they're going as well. So the image on the right, you can see everybody talking in a group, but the one lady in the middle seems like she's not belonging. that is another form of the separation where you can be in a group and just everybody is just talking around you. And so I've had many occasions in my life feeling separated from other people, even though I'm in a crowd. And sometimes the separation I felt was only in my head. In other words, I created the separation. This is something we also need to watch for in our daily lives and on the journey. Is what we are feeling truly what we are feeling, or is it something that we're just telling ourselves? Perception is key to understanding where we are in our lives and what we're going through. If we discover the separation is within ourselves, we have to do shadow work to change this pattern. If we discover the separation is from an outside source, then we have to do shadow work to change how we react in those situations. I'm sorry to say to everyone, shadow work is inevitable and is a huge part of our everyday life and growth work. Shadow work is what allows us to grow on the hero's journey and continue through. And so the shadow work can make you feel isolated, as in the image on the left, where she's going within and withdrawn. But it could also be outside sources making you look within, which is why I did the image on the right, to show energy coming into your mind, influencing you, and you have to decide, are you going to let it influence you, or are you going to stand firm in who you are and what you believe? Which the shadow work is really our second step. The second step, called initiation. This is a strong reason I feel this step is really important. This is the step where we become the magician in our story. And the magician needs to be initiated or awakened to the ability to change within ourselves. What this means is we are taking the situation that we're in and we're looking within to say, do we like the way we're reacting to this situation? Do we like the way this makes me feel? If the answer is no, we have to figure out what will make us like what we're seeing and how we're feeling. And what do we have to do to get there? That's the shadow work. These patterns are layered, and I know we are a society of a one and done style existence, but shadow work is not an easy fix. It's going to take work, and the work is as hard as you make it or as easy as you make it. And by that, it's really based on your ability to grow, how adaptive you are, and how quickly you process. Everyone processes at their own speed, and that's why heroes' journeys kind of get a little bit entangled when in a group, because some people may be fast, some may be slow. And so it's our choice to act upon the shadow's journey and how we react to it, but we have to have patience for others when we're doing it in a group. Now, as we're doing the shadow work, we start to see the changes, but we have to fully commit, and we are at free will throughout the hero's journey to move as fast or as slow as you want to. There's no time limit. And there's no medal for coming in first saying, I'm done, I learned what I need to learn. But on the flip side, there's no losers in the hero's journey either. Everyone who undergoes and participates in the journey is a winner in the end. The end is what you choose to make of it. The process of the hero's journey is what you make of it. Think about that. You are in complete control of your growth and your awareness. Nobody can do this for you. So the process of initiation, I feel like, is a really big part of the aha moments we have in our lives where we realize all the changes that we're making in our lives are either working or still need to be tweaked a little bit. And so these images that I chose here with the AI are kind of showing where they're in half in the shadow world, half in the light, which is where you should be with the initiation stage. As we change in our thoughts and interactions, we start to feel the magic and the mythos of the hero's journey. Now, when we can see ourselves starting to change as the process continues, we're at choice to say, I have done enough. This is it. I am done with this hero's journey. Or you can say, wow, what more can I do? The journey of discovery of who and what you are made of is what is the hero's journey. Are you willing to talk the talk? Willing to walk the walk? I know I heard that growing up and never really understood it until now, what they're asking of you. This is what the hero's journey is about. Are you willing to go all the way, to make yourself who you really want to be, and know there's no wrong answer in this. The magic, power, and mythos of the hero's journey is that you are in complete control over how it begins, progresses, and ends. And so the images here I chose are showing they're being more enlightened and still a little bit in the shadows, but their light is starting to shine through. They're starting to take control. And as we make the choice and see ourselves through the initiation stage, we reach the final stage of the hero's journey, as Joseph Campbell points it out. This is known as the return stage. In my experience, this is when we return to our true self we were born to be, and our interactions start to show that to other people, and we start to show to other people who we are, what we are about. Another way to look at it is in the indigenous tribes. We're returning to the tribe after having a vision quest. We now know our purpose. We know what we need to do, how we're going to do it, how it's going to unfold. The important stage of the return is because we feel we've mastered our initiation, we mastered the changes we wanted to make in our life, but we also mastered the challenge that put this journey into motion. We have taken our emotions, we've taken our experiences that impacted us, and we've made them now to be what we want them to be. And I'm going to back up for a second because I want really to show on these two images the energy that's coming off of both of these people. They are in their warrior spirit. They are in who they really are, and it's resonating out. This is what they want the world to see. Look how calm they are. Look how content they are. The return stage to me is the growth of the individual who can stand in their power in the correct way. Now, the correct way in my interpretation is when we stand for who we are. We don't let anyone tell us this is who you're going to be, this is what you have to do. We know what we have to do. And we start to understand our warrior spirit is in our core. And so no one can take that away from us except ourselves. And this warrior is not going to raise his or her weapons to prove a point or make anyone believe what they believe. If you're in that stage of the return and you're in your warrior energy and you're saying to everybody, this is what you have to do, this is the only way, I personally believe you're still in the hero's journey. You haven't fully finished the return and the initiation. So my advice would be is to go back and look at it. Why are you using your warrior this way? Now, if you were to come out and say, my warrior energy is telling me this, and people are open or not, and you just walk away, that is a warrior spirit. That's the true warrior. You're not making anyone believe what you believe. You're just there giving an idea, advice, and supporting. Now, I mentioned here that if you're in a work situation, don't go into your office and start saying, I'm the warrior and this is how I'm going to do it, and isolate yourself from the team because you don't agree with them. You still can work within the confines of what is going on, but don't let people in your work situation tell you you're not good enough or you're not smart enough to do something. Prove them wrong. Do it. And you never know what the results may be. Just check your warrior energy and make sure you're always in service to yourself and others. And the power and mythos of the hero's journey is that it's flexible and ongoing. And a lot of people always ask me, well, what do you do when you're done? What happens when you're done? And Joseph Campbell actually reflected on this, and he points out what I think is that a good life is one hero journey after another. Over and over again, you get called to the realm of adventure, new horizons. Each time, though, there's the same question: do I dare? If I dare, there is a danger that you can fulfill it and get your bliss, or it could turn into a fiasco, which still will result in bliss. That's the power of the hero's journey. And by that, I am pointing out that I know it sounds strange to say a fiasco is bliss, but look at what you learn from that fiasco. So if you learn from it and learn how to turn that fiasco into a fulfillment, you have accomplished the hero's journey. You have the right to celebrate yourself. You have the right to know that you have become even stronger. And the hero's journey is a spiritual, physical growth. The end of the hero's journey only comes when you decide you are who you want to be in life, in every aspect, every avenue, all over the map. And that is totally fine. If you accomplish that, my admiration to you for being able to do it and enjoy the rest of your life. But to me, the hero's journey never actually ends. And when we transition from this world to the next, I feel that's a hero's journey as well. because we're going to undertake what we've learned here and utilize it there. And so, my question to you all is, as the creators of your journey and the creators of your own existence, how will your journey unfold? Do you have the courage and fortitude to take on all these heroes' journeys? Now, at this point, I'm going to share with you some of my personal heroes' journeys and the perspectives that I learned from them. So please keep in mind what I'm about to share is my own personal insight, perspective, and experience. Now, as a young child, I grew up in a family where we had high standards put on us a little bit, where my dad was an engineer, and so he had a particular way of writing and showing everything. And so he wanted us to show our work and our homework a certain way. And so, doing math as an example, I would, if I did, had a number off centered from where it should be, he would make me redo it so that it would be perfectly lined up. And it used to make me feel like my own way wasn't the right way. Had to do it his way. Well, growing up, I started to realize that works for him, not for me. So I had to stand up for how I did it my way. And in the end, he came to a point in his life where he apologized for making me feel like my way wasn't good enough and that it was only his way. And so we got a lot of growth from that and a lot of perspectives from that, to where we learned how to communicate better, how to support each other. And so that's a hero's journey. Another example as a child was I had family leave and wanted nothing to do with us, meaning my parents and I. Well, it made us feel isolated and made me question what's wrong with me. What did I do? And how do I fix this? So it actually launched in me the most powerful magician energy I have ever had. And that was, I started taking on healing modalities like Huna, timeline therapy, radical forgiveness, tarot, gypsy palm reading, and I started to learn from all of these things how to heal myself so that I could heal a situation. Well, come like 20, 30 years later, I wake up and realize I was not the cause of this situation. There were multiple causes and multiple people's influences. And so I learned I'm responsible for my part. And I healed my part. And when I did, this huge weight was lifted from me. And my awareness changed to where I no longer was concerned how other family members saw me or what they thought of me. I truly cleared myself of that dilemma, and that was an amazing hero's journey that I undertook. And I'm so grateful to the universe for giving me that hero's journey, because I would not be who I am today without it. And so I would not go back in time to change any of it. Now, I'm also a podcaster, and doing the podcast, that was a hero's journey that challenged me to look at who I am and how I see myself. I was approached just as I started doing paranormal investigations by a network, and they said, "You'd be a great host. People will love you. You need to have a show. Let us give you a show and work with you." And I looked at myself and I said, I don't know anybody in the paranormal field. I don't know, anybody who'd want to listen to me. My voice is my voice. And I just simply doubted myself and let my doubts control where I was in that stage in my life. And so about 2, 3 years later, I'm at a paranormal event, and they're the network guy is on a got a camera set up, and they're live streaming the event, and I get introduced to someone for 5 seconds on the phone and say hello to everyone, and I get pulled away. So I got separated from the situation. When I came back, I jokingly said to the network head, "Hey, I guess I missed my 15 seconds of fame. Oh well." And he looked at me and goes, "Oh no, we got bigger plans for you, and we want you to have a show." And now I'm sitting here in my head and going, I have a voice. I have experiences now. I know people. Let me give it a shot. And so I go talk to a friend, and she and I decide to create a podcast together. And after 6 months, we looked at each other and said, the title's not working, the format's kind of wonky. We let's make it look better. Let's really put ourselves into this. And my show, The Energy That Surrounds Us, was born, and it was a learning process. Every show is a learning process, how to interact with people. But it's grown to be popular, and one of the things that I learned and brought to the show is I'm authentically me. What you see is what you get. I don't put on a hat to say, okay, now it's my paranormal side, or now it's going to be my unexplained side. I grew comfortable in who I was to put myself on screen and to share my knowledge with everyone, which was a journey too, because first I wanted just the guests to share theirs, and now it's an equal exchange. So that's an even bigger growth there as well. And so the hero's journeys are just life situations that we have the choice how we look at and how we interact with. And so I am so grateful that I have the opportunity to have my shows, the energy that surrounds us, and riding through the unknown to share different aspects of my stories. That I have guests that come on to share their stories and their experiences and knowledge, and it gets shared out to all the listeners. And I can honestly say with all of my heart, doing presentations like this, and this is my first one, so first of many, I hope, and doing my shows, I could not do it without the people who watch and support the shows. And so I am truly grateful and truly appreciative with all of my heart. And I also know there's a lot of work that goes in behind the scenes to make the shows look as perfect as much as we can. Live shows have their little ups and downs. You've seen that with this live conference. And how we roll with it shows who we are. And so, thank you for allowing me the space to talk about this hero's journeys and how they impact our lives. And I want to take a moment before we do the Q&A too and say a heartfelt thank you to Gina, Virginia Casella, Julia Ankerhaven, Jason, all the vendors, all the speakers, all the healers, everybody who's participating in this as a viewer in this first ever Story Species, Story Medicine, the Continuum of Consciousness Evolution Conference Series. Promise of Spring is this one. I am just so honored and blessed to be a part of this and so grateful and appreciative to Gina for giving me space to present this to you all. And so thank you to Gina for all you've done to put this together. Wow, look at this hero's journey that you're doing right now. And everybody watching this, you're engaging in heroes' journeys as well. So, blessings to you all. And I'm going to stop sharing this right now, and I will turn it over to Gina to see where we go next.
That was a phenomenal presentation, Michael. Thank you so much. I hear an echo. Michael, pause yourself. Hey, it's not me this time. There's going to be an echo until you. Can you pause your microphone, Michael? Okay. Thank you so much, Michael, for your presentation. I think there was an echo because your computer was recording. I don't know. And I don't really care. I just care that we can hear now with clarity. And you're right. There is a lot of behind the scenes that goes on. And I'm really thankful for your extraordinary presentation on the hero's journey because it's so relevant to all of us. And you vulnerably sharing with us personal insight about the ups and downs and the confusion about the hero's journey and this triangle that we're caught in. And so I would like to take some questions from the chat. If anybody has a question, it's helpful if you put a Q beside it. Julia Ankerhaven has one. If you notice, it says Q, and then that helps me find it faster. So I'll just keep taking questions up until the 11:50 mark. So we've got a good 20 minutes, so we can breathe and we don't have to feel like we have to rush through questions. And if anybody has a follow-up question, I'm going to be scanning the comments here. So Julia Ankerhaven is wondering, what has been the greatest tool for Michael on his journey? And I'll pause myself.
Wow, that's a really good question. The greatest tool I would say is my awareness and my intuition. And the reason I say my intuition is because I grew up where I would always hear of women's intuition, never heard of man's intuition. And so I thought we didn't have one. And I knew we had gut responses. And so I was like, okay, guys have guts, women have intuition. And I learned on my hero's journey that men have intuition too, and it's equally powerful tool to have. And I also have to say the greatest tool for me as well is learning how to communicate, because in my thoughts I'm hearing one thing, and my words sometimes don't come out the same way. And so I've learned on the journey how to make my thoughts and voice as close as I can to relate the information. And so it is, you know, really the tools are within us, and it's all about how we use them and how we make the choices that we make. And one thing I want to say real quick about choice before I hand it back to Gina, if there's any other questions, is the beauty of choice is we can make a choice to make a right turn. And if that right turn turns out to be the wrong choice for us at some point, we can just make a left turn. It doesn't matter. We can turn around, or we can go straight and, try to push our way through and force whatever we're wanting to happen. But choices are simply just that. They're a device made in the journey, and you are at free will to change them at will. It seems hard, but it's really not when you get the hang of it. So I'm going to mute myself and turn it back over to Gina.
Yes, thank you for that, Michael. And that's a good reminder too for everybody. Everything that you said. James Whitaker is commenting in the chat, from within an ever increasing self-awareness. And I was scrolling because I had a question in there and I was able to find it. And my question is, Michael, why do you feel it can be so confusing for the hero in the hero's journey?
Well, the confusion, I think, comes from society and family, friends, everywhere around us are putting all these ideas, all these thoughts of who we are supposed to be, what we're supposed to be, and all of those have an impact. And a great example of that is growing up in school. You're always asked, what are you going to do with your life? You need to know what you're going to do with your life. In my mind, I'm like, I'm 10 years old. How do I know what I'm going to do in my life? Why are you asking me this? And so you get confusing because everybody is telling you, like, oh, you like to argue, you should be a lawyer. Oh, you have this great insight, you should be a psychiatrist, or you should be a therapist. Oh, you like to help people, be a librarian. You like to read. And so you're getting all these different, quote, helpful guides, but at the same time, you're getting overwhelmed because you're like, okay, this person wants me to be this person wants me to be that. And some families have family businesses, and so they want you to groom you to go into the family business. And if that's not what you want to do, you feel like you're disappointing them. So you're like, well, I don't want to disappoint them, but my dream is to go do this. But if I disappoint them, that's going to make life worse. So I'll give up my dream to make them happy. And that's where the confusion comes in, is we don't know how to be who we want to be and feel supported by everyone, because we feel like making that choice, we're letting someone down. And we don't want to let people down. And so that, to me, Gina, is the confusion that a lot of the heroes and heroines feel in the hero's journey, is how to manifest who they are and please everyone at the same time.
That was a phenomenal answer. I know you can't hear me because I was muted, but I was like, yes, yes, because it's true. Everything that you said, and I took some notes here when you were talking because it's so powerful. Because at one point in your presentation, I don't know if you realized it or not, but you were talking about milestones and rite of passage and ceremony, and you didn't describe it like that, but that's basically what you were talking about. The hero's journey has a step 1, then there's a step 2, and it follows this algorithm. And that's the power about story medicine and the hero's journey, because if you weren't familiar with Joseph Campbell and his work and his story medicine, then you wouldn't have been able to make these connections, right? And in our world today, a lot of us, for example, when we graduate high school, we have a ceremony, and this business of ceremony, rite of passage, is missing in a lot of our lives. And so you spoke to how it's always up to us to own it and to alchemize it. And so it was powerful for me because when I listen to you speak, the interpretation in my mind is very encouraging. Like, you don't have to wait for somebody to celebrate you. You can celebrate yourself. You don't have to wait to get to a certain milestone. You can be excited about your life and start taking charge and alchemizing it. And so that was very powerful to me. And these important phases in our life, again, are so imperative as part of our story medicine, these rites of passages. And people really don't realize that. And the power of the hero's journey is that it's something that everybody can work with. You know, you're like in a car driving down the road, and that's your hero's journey. And in truth, this is where duality comes into play. And I'm sure Michael would agree, but it's like, to some degree, the details don't matter. The details are there to drive the bigger themes. Without the details, we couldn't get to the bigger themes. So this is where we talk about hypocrisy now, because it's like we need the details to get to the themes. And when we talk about eagle condor medicine, eagle condor rises above all of the details. But for me, for the hero's journey as well, you know what? Sometimes eagle condor needs to put the glasses on, right? And when eagle condor has to wear glasses, that's when you know the torch is being passed on. Eagle condor can't help you out anymore. Eagle condor is wearing glasses. You have to now take charge of those details and that reprogramming. And that really spoke to me, even though you didn't describe it like that. So anything you want to say about that, Michael? And then there's, we'll take one more question from the chat.
Sure. And one thing that you commented on, I can't remember the full comment, but it got me thinking. And the hero has the ability to see himself and see the light within, and everybody, shares with you what they see. And what's interesting to me is, in several situations in my life, I would just simply walk into a room and everybody would light up and be like, Michael's here. Oh, and they'd want to rush up and talk to me. And I'm like, I'm not in a mood right now to talk to a lot of people. And so sometimes I'd be like, oh boy, okay, here we go. What's this gonna be about? Or I'd have people who would say to people I've never met, oh, here, you need to meet this person. And they would introduce them to me, and I'm like, why is this going on? I'm just me. Why? And I started to realize in my life that I was emanating this energy and this light from myself, and the people who were like-minded or wanting just to be in that saw it and came, and that's what it was. It was my authenticity and my just natural who I am, my true self, from all this work that I've been doing, that people were like, I want to be around this person. I want to hang out with this person. And so that was a major thing for me to see and experience, because now when I have guests come on my shows, as Gina has been a guest and doing other things on my shows, I oftentimes will say before we get started, take a breath, just be yourself, just, be authentic. People will see it. That's what they're going to gravitate towards. And so I just want to again say thank you to Gina for giving us this conference space to be our authentic selves.
Are very welcome. It is my pleasure. Today is a big day of thanks and gratitude. We still have 8 minutes, so I noticed Julia's like me. She's always full of questions. We'll see if we can get to your other one, Julia. Michael, Can you share about your near-death experience and how it impacted your awareness and psychic gifts, please?
Wow. Yes, I'd love to. So I'll make the near death experience brief, and I'll hit the highlights of it. So I have a very hot nature, and I live in Texas, and it was the summertime, so you all have painted this picture of it being very hot, and you would be absolutely right. Well, I started feeling cold, and I don't feel cold very often. And so I started to wonder what's going on, and it would get increasingly cold to where like I could feel ice crystals forming on my bones cold. And I'm like, something's wrong. So I changed into long sleeve shirts, sweatpants, put blankets around me, and I just could not warm up. And so I called my mom because I was working for my parents at the time and said, hey, just a heads up, I'm feeling really off and I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it in tomorrow. And she said, just go get some rest, wake up in the morning, let us know how you feel. So I get up and I walk towards my room. And as I walk through the doorway, imagine this four post, like half size post bed of real wood greets me, and I look at it, and the next thing I know, I'm on the floor, and my chin is hurting a little bit, and I'm like, what's going on? And I notice a little bit of blood on my chin. Well, come to find out, I passed out. I totally lost consciousness, blanked out, and hit my head on the post of the bed. Thankfully, didn't break anything. But the interesting part was actually what happened next is my system purged itself. And so I cleaned all that up and was like, why did my system purge? And in that moment, I turned and I realized I'm not cold anymore. And I've returned to my normal warmth level. But I also was aware I could sense people were around that I couldn't sense before. And so I was like, okay, spirits are around, energies are different. I could feel the energies and I could see in dark like matrix energy lines. So I could see in the dark. And I was like, oh, I now have nocturnal sight. Okay. And I could feel when my dog would be coming around the corner. I could literally almost hear him coming, even though he was on carpet, and carpet doesn't make sounds. And I also noticed my dog could see color. Like, we had different color tennis balls, some were double colored. And I would say, get the purple ball. He would find by going through every tennis ball the purple one and bring it. Or I would say the purple and blue. He would know which one was the purple and blue. And I was like, I thought dogs were colorblind. Well, my dog's not. And so I was like, what else can he do? And I started realizing all these different things, and I started to notice like my mom would come up to me and she'd say, "Oh, did you see this in the news?" And I'd say, "Don't worry about that. That's not really a big deal. It's going to be over in a couple of days. It's nothing's going to happen." It's like I knew the future. And so I told myself, "Oh, I think, my future self came back and walked in this moment." And then I reached a certain age and I was like, 25, it was like all my past lives, that was it. 25 was it. So I reached 26 and I was like, who? Maybe I'm off and this is really my 25th year. And then I made 27 and I was like, well, I guess I broke the prophecy this time because I'm still here. But I realized things that were normally would be like weighing on my mind, I couldn't even remember. And so that's some of the awareness that my near death brought me. And the impact was it really changed how I looked at life and what was important to me.
Wow, that was an incredible answer. Thank you so much for sharing, Michael. For us to have a soul tribe community and share stories like this, it's such a relief to so many out there. So they know they're not alone, and putting the pieces together that this wasn't just a random slip and fall accident. You actually lost consciousness and you have a belief that you died, came back from the dead, and your whole entire body was able to recalibrate, which often folks like myself who have had severe panic attacks, excuse me, that's what happens. Our senses get thrown off, recalibrated. And do you find yourself nocturnal still to this day?
I am, and the trick that I have to do is I have to like really quiet myself and really tune into my environment and really like look at the picture in pitch black and go, okay, this is what it looks like in the light. What am I seeing now? And then it's like I start to translate the code like, oh, these lines are the couch. Oh, these lines are a table. And sometimes there'll be lines that I don't know what they are because they don't match. And I'm like, oh, that must be a spirit or something, or a portal, or, another energy of some kind that's in here. And so I've learned that. And one gift I also was given was I had a doctor on the energy that surrounds us, and I was talking to her about an experience where I was at a battlefield and I could smell, I could see, I could hear, I could taste in the air what was going on. And all my senses were in it. And she kind of smiled and she goes, that's not a memory. That's not you witnessing, a past life memory. That's you actually being there in that event. You time traveled to that time. And I had to sit with that for a little bit and go, wow, I can time travel now? But the problem is with having that knowledge, I don't know how to trigger it. And so it's like I don't get to just go up to a location and go, hey, show me what life was like at this time. Let's go. It's something triggers it. I've only had it happen twice in my life. So I feel it is connected to my past lives, but I haven't fully learned how to do it yet.
Right. And that's the case for most of us, right? When we need it activated the most, we can't seem to do it, right? Well, I want to thank you, Michael Kopf, everybody here on the first ever Story Species, Story Medicine, the continuum of conscious evolution, promise of spring. Thank you, Michael, so very much. I greatly, greatly appreciate you. I know there were some more questions in the chat. We are out of time, but you can also visit Michael on his YouTube, get in touch with him, carry on the conversation, and don't forget about the free Facebook group, the Dragon Dreams Soul Tribe Collective. Going to remove Michael from the stage. Thank you again, Michael. Really appreciate you. So it's time for us to go on another break. In theory, I've got the schedule in the background, but I'm blocking it. Okay, still trying to figure that one out. But let me show you our break slide. So we've got Brian